was amazing. I feel so privileged to be in this audience. I just don't know how to thank you. We are just so honored that you gave us all that information. It was amazing. Um, so we have some time. Can you stick around? And
yes, of course. It looks like I did talk a lot too long, but I'm sorry
no,
about that. I wasn't paying attention to my time. So
every minute was golden. And I just, you know, a young, you know, I look in the chat, but people, you know, we have some wonderful people here. I'm sure they have questions. I have questions. And thank you for ending it with that picture of Kim Lee. We, you know, she's very special to the New York, New Jersey group also. So does anybody want to open up, or I just want to say something, you know, one question that kind of disturbed me while you were talking was that the North Korea threat sells well with the American people. That is very disturbing to me as an American. We have so, and maybe that's connected to what you're talking about, that that Korea still is a minor issue with the West peace groups and needs to be more major, and that could counteract some of that. But I don't know if you have any material that backs that up, but it'd be something that we need to measure perhaps and understand.
I think that the North Korean threat sells well. I think that was in the context of why United States may not support peace or coexistence with the North Korea, which North Korea desire. Because in this particular context, it's not just this kind of random hatred, but there's a policy rationale behind that is, North Korea threat will increase tension on the Korean Peninsula, which then, as I pointed earlier, Greg points out very well, and it's just kind of cover for U.S. anti-China policy. That's one thing. Another is, I have taught, for the last, I guess, 20 years, American students. And truly, it's amazing what even we will call the educated class, university students, what they know, how little they know about North Korea. And also the second is North Korea is completely demonized. Demonized. It's evil. So in that sense, it is North Korea. So you don't have to, for American policymakers to keep their attention anti-North Korea rhetoric, you don't have to do much. And so that's why it's kind of, fuels that no matter what North Korea does, and North Korea is always going to be portrayed as obviously the bad guy. And as the slide that I showed was how even the latest example where North Korea said, we're not going to even fire a single bullet towards the South unless we're attacked. And in the Western media, they will present North Korea not going to annihilate, United States or so. And if you get their data, there's plenty of data. It says that it shows how some Americans support using nuclear weapons, and North Korea's. So in that sense, I think that North Korea threat sells well to the American people. It is for it to serve its policy purpose.
Wouldn't you also say, Simone, that the military-industrial complex, which holds so much sway and is, of course, vested in keeping up wars so that they can sell more arms, has a lot to do with the way the conservative media speaks, and how policymakers who are lobbied speak. And so there is definitely a population here who buy the anti-North Korea rhetoric because it's their own benefit. And that is scary because they're not just people who are answering a poll. They have a huge personal stake in keeping up that type of demonization and that type of need for more arms and more defense, etc.
Yeah, that's I think that's probably the more also to some extent more important point. In other words, it's not just a rhetoric that is concrete, you know, the material economic interest. And so South Korea is, as you know, is third largest importer of US weapons. So as if there's no tension, if peace breaks out on the Korean Peninsula, basically, you know, military industrial complex will lose their profit. So that's another reason. And also I pointed out earlier, South Korea itself is becoming right now major weapons exporter. So that's, you know, so there's that the shared interest between military industrial complex in the United States and also in South Korea. So yeah, but it's an important point.
Could I ask a question actually, unless, is there anyone else who would like to ask a question? Please put it in the chat. I'm maybe missing it, but I'm not.
Yeah, there's one quick question, Ayoung. Just, I don't know if you meant it, but at one point you said that the president-elect planned to allow people to work more than 120 hours a week.
Yeah, she said it.
We were trying to figure out how you could do that.
I know you guys go, oh my God. He actually said that, you know, she said that some people wanted to work, you know, more than 120 hours, but because it's a law, it's against the law, so they can. So, you know, he basically said that, you know, you're actually depriving people's freedom, opportunity to, you know, to work longer and earn more money. So that's where I pointed early how really ignorant and how really us, I mean, it's just a very anti-labor and ultra right-wing neoliberal view that he has. Yeah.
And we have another Suba.
I'd like to ask a question though. It just slipped out of my mind. Oh, my question was regarding the elections, not the presidential elections, but like in the US, we have, you know, the presidential election, and then we're going to have the congressional elections and, you know, lower level political offices. In Korea, what is the next big kind of election? The parliamentarians, when do they come?
That's a good question. Parliamentary election will be 2024. And right now, the Democratic Party has a great majority.
Went downstairs with the tree, the plant.
Somebody needs to mute. Just hold on a minute. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so the next election for Parliament will be, Korean Assembly will be 2024. And currently the Democratic Party has the majority. But there is also other upcoming elections. In fact, in June, there's going to be election to elect some governors and some of those seats in the National Assembly that have been vacant. And so it's going to be basically in 2 months, and it's going to be interesting if Yoon's victory, win in the presidential, you know, victory will kind of have a spillover, so that he's going to grab more. There's going to be another election for another victory for the Conservative Party, so that's coming. Another factor. Yeah, I think I did answer. Yeah, the next big election will be 2024, and So Yoon's another factor that's going to make Yoon's administration complicated is because it's a divided government. So the National Assembly, he'll be forced to work with the National Assembly, which is controlled by obviously the opposition party. And so that's where that's where its situation is now.
Will that weaken Yoon's power in any way?
Pardon?
Will the opposition party being leading in the parliament for another 2 years, will that have a way of blocking some of Yoon's initiatives?
Well, that is the hope. But if you look at, unfortunately though, Yoon is just like a Trump. The guy, what he has shown is that he is very, in a way, if you are his supporter, you will really kind of trust, because he can get things done, and he will just keep pushing and pushing to get what he wants. For the opposition, now the opposition is going to be opposition party, Democrat Party, have shown that they had, as I pointed out in my talk, have been very ineffective, really disappointing with regard to implementing those reforms. And I mean, has the absolute majority. If they want, they can even pass enough seat to block all of Yoon's initiatives. They can block his nominees. So the Democratic Party has the majority, that power. But the problem is there are a lot within Democratic Party. A lot of them could be easily Yoon Suk-yeol's supporters. A lot of them are conservatives. And they have actually been sabotaging. They're sabotaging those, progressive reforms, not from the Conservative Party, but so in other words, the Democratic Party itself has a lot of very, strong groups that oppose progressive reform. So that's why I'm saying, especially so you have a very strong, person like Yoon Suk-yeol, and the division within Democratic Party. So you put those two together. What I'm thinking are happening is pretty much Yoon is going to, probably he will be able to push a lot of those policies. So that's worries. But I think that based on what I've seen for the last 2 or 3 years, I cannot see if the Democratic Party is going to have guts or, strength to, implement those reforms. So which is very, it's sad, it's disappointing.
So there's something in the chat. We want to make sure that Subak talks about something related to your talk about the need for pushing back. And we have something planned in New York that Subak's been working really hard on. Do you want to talk about it, the human chain?
Thank you, Sally. First, thank you, Dr. Chun, Simone. A wonderful presentation. Wonderful.
Thank you.
And I belong to June 15 New York Committee. The full name is June 15 Declaration Implementation Committee. So I emphasize the action in our committee. Listening is important, learning is important, but how we show to other people, how we take action is the important part of my organization. And coming April 23rd, we are planning connecting 2 Korean UN missions in Manhattan, human chain. So I'm working hard, and also Sally, Ayoung, and Alicia helping with the program. I thank you so much. However, still, we need a lot more people should come to make a human chain. The South Korean mission and North Korean mission 350 meters apart. And I need at least 150 people. We can make a human chain, and we can show the world how the Korean people living in domestically in Korea or overseas, we want so much one Korea. One Korea is so important, not only for Korean, but that problem make the lot of a problem in Korea. I mean, a peace matter. Once we united, I think in Asia, much peaceful area. America and DPRK especially make a peaceful relationship. I believe the whole world change, but Korea divided and America refused to make a relationship with the DPRK. It lasting 77 years so far. We don't know when we can make one Korea. However, we are so anxious to make it one Korea. And while I'm listening to Dr. Chun, I felt, yes, we are implementing Dr. Chun's presentation. So thank you very much. Please join us April 23rd, 11:30 or 11:40, Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza in Manhattan. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Subha. There's another question from Maud. Maud, do you want to just unmute and ask your question?
Okay, I wondered whether you could talk a little bit about the war games that are planned, these military exercises, if you know details about them, because my sense is they're really more horrific than most people understand.
Yeah, war game says a joint military exercise. Let me first, mention there those people who going to U.S. and official South Korea official position. They said this is for purely, it's sort of a deterrence purpose against North Korea's threat, and it is not at all. If you look at their propaganda, it's not at all offensive, but that is not true. It has, as I mentioned, it has it includes a component of live fire drills. Although for the last 2 years, that live fire drills were not part of it because of COVID pandemic era. So they only focusing on computer simulation. It is contrary to what they're saying, it's not offensive. It is offensive because, as I pointed out, it includes specific plan of it's called decapitation plan, which means taking, assassinating or getting rid of North Korean leaders or leadership, which is also itself is problematic. Obviously, it's against international laws. And another is, to go along with that, actually, I do remember, meeting or talking with the Korean diplomat who was actually sent from Korean National Intelligence, Kook Jong-un, and he was trying to convince me why it is important to get rid of North Korean leadership, because his argument was, which I think a lot of people still believe that, says once you get rid of North Korean leadership, majority of North Koreans, they are going to welcome, support United States led, they didn't say invasion, but the operation. So that is their rationale. So in other words, their argument is based on the idea that North Korean elite is basically, it is not supported at all by their people. So if you get rid of the leadership, then you basically take care of the problem. And so another about the military exercise is that the military exercise itself, right? Itself will for for the North to in response to the military exercise. You recall, North Korea cannot just sit down and do nothing. It has to mobilize all of its military, all the military resources, especially in this time of pandemic. And you can imagine what kind of stress, what kind of tension that it will create. So U.S. South Korea joint military exercise has been the main cause of North Korea's main cause for the tension increasing, maintaining. Moreover, joint military exercise is a violation of armistice agreement, by violation of armistice agreement. And because the armistice agreement stated that neither party should engage in any provocative act, because we are, as you know, there's no peace treaty. Korean War has not ended officially. No peace treaty, the state of halting the war. So in that sense, the joint military exercise is another reason, the most important factor that raised tension. Now, so right now, actually, if you look at it, I haven't heard the latest news about this upcoming drill. And still there's in Korea, and also we are in the United States, we are trying to, have the successful campaign to suspend that drill. But my feeling is that they're going to go ahead anyway. And if Yoon gets elected, he is proposing going back to the full-scale U.S. South Korea joint military exercise. And in fact, he was criticizing Moon administration, saying that Moon has been appeasing North Korea by not having those live fire drills, by having only computer simulation. And so he said, he said clearly that he would like to see more expanded military drill. One more thing about the word drill also, this is point to the Korean soldier. I have 3 nephews, all served in the army. They are, finished their mandatory military service. One of my nephews served in very near the border. And he told me that whenever there's, during the joint military exercise, whenever there is some, time of tension, he said just unimaginably harsh training for those Korean soldiers stationed. So imagine, young Korean young man, 20s. You can imagine, right? What a waste of their, lives in this useless war game.
Yeah. Well, I had a question about, the economic situation, the fact that inflation and housing prices and other reasons why people wanted to throw out the old government, get a new government. It sounds a lot like what we might experience here in the midterm elections, that everybody's saying inflation, inflation, inflation. That's all people care about. And they're just going to probably change Congress. We're going to be facing a rough midterm. What are the chances that Yoon and his government can do anything to improve the economy? And is that going to be another thing that maybe causes, he'll get his run, but it won't last long?
Yeah, that's good. That's good point. About the economic issue. This is, I think, it's economic issue. It's shared by all of us. It's not just Korea. And at this time, at this level of capitalist development, we have basically, wages have been stagnant. In the meantime, there's a massive concentration of wealth, not creating, livable jobs with livable wages. And in the meantime, because so much, very minority of people have such a concentrated capital, they are going to gamble. So one of the places where they gamble are housings, and all that, and they're driving up the housing prices as well. That's part of the game, and you don't have to read Lenin, the Marxist scholars to point out, but that's that's simple. Now, Korea has also added to that, though. Korea is its own. It's a very unique type of economic development, where the economic development is led by major few oligopolistic corporation called chaebol, very highly concentrated, which based on very anti-labor policies, a platform which was supported by, actually created by former dictators and the other conservative predecessors. And as a result, South Korea, yes, it is 10th largest economy. South Korea feels good about it. But if you look at the level of the poverty of elderly, income inequality, and also especially the what drove this election, right? Very probably the youth economic problems with the young people, youth unemployment issue. These are all, yes, that's, I wouldn't I really think that was probably the second most, or if not the most important factor that determined the outcome. Now, can Yoon do anything about it? I think not. Now we're going to look at, in fact, this was our thinking, there's already anti-Yoon movement. Now, Yoon's going to, I'll actually point out one more factor. Another thing that also made President Moon unpopular was because, it's still liberal government. So they tried to push some more redistributive economic policies. And they also, raised taxes on those people who owned more than 2 houses. And people didn't like it. Rich people were, offended by it, I suppose. And so that made Yoon extremely unpopular. So the richest people, and also if you look at the data, just like Trump, people who are the poorest and the richest voted for Yoon, just like Trump, right? And I don't think Yoon is going to be able to address this economic issue. And the rising inflation, and South Korea's household debt is very high, very dangerously high. And oil, with the rising oil price, when South Korea has zero oil, they're importing all the oil. And also in the meantime, corporations have such anti-labor, this very greedy corporation have such a monopolistic power, and Yoon's going to more help them. I don't see at all Yoon's going to be able to address any of those economic problems. For that's why I think he's going to probably, the winning election was easier for him. But I think that for him to provide any alternative addressing these economic issues, I don't see any prospect. Therefore, probably it will, quicken his demise as well. And the problem with that is, though, when you face that kind of challenge, I can already see that he's going to go after those who criticize him, and it's gonna be a sort of we're gonna have a new, very repressive government, especially, and many people are right now in Korea saying that this election was actually coup d'etat by prosecutors. It was not South Korea's, it's no longer military coup d'etat, but it's a prosecutors. And I'm going back to prosecutors' power because, there's a lot of corruptions, by, business groups. So when they're brought into law, what do? You hire the best lawyer. The best lawyers are usually those who are previous prosecutors, because they all have a connection. So what happened is that these prosecutors get enormously enriched simply because of their connection. So again, going back to your question, no, Yoon won't be able to address these economic issues.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at the time, and you've been so generous with your time. I just really want to thank you so much, Simone. This was a real education for me. And, just seeing things. Some of those figures I think about South Koreans being in support of the peace treaty and for engagement. All of those charts could be so useful to us in our, congressional meetings, because I was kind of worried when you started out that we might have some problems in, trying to engage, Congress to sign on to HR 3446 that, this election, the South Korean people voted for this hawkish president. But I think with your, we probably need to have some translations to English just for some of us. But, we could use that. I think we could use those really successfully with some of our New York delegation here. We do have 5 New York in the New York delegation, which are co-sponsors to HR 3446. I was just looking at the list somewhere. I hope I had the number right. We met with one of them today, Mondaire Jones, who is in the Westchester County. So yeah, I would love to use some of those things in a meeting.
Of course, you're welcome to. And yes, I did. There's a lot of Korean in it, but of course, please let me know, and how I can help you with those,
Yeah.
messages. Yes, it is absolutely. The only you hear from the media is that, South Koreans voted for this conservative president. So that's their will. No, that is not at all that their wish is.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of, that we would have some problems. But I think with those charts and some of that other public opinion that is not available to us in English, perhaps. I don't know if it is. I don't. Those things I think we should try out, experiment with, and see how it works out with some of our more progressive delegation. And, we can share it with the rest of the network.
Another thing also, let me also add that, I mentioned about the, one way I think also we can also convince Biden people, some of the Democratic side, is that Yoon Sung-yeol this guy is is anti-feminist, anti-women, anti-worker. He's just misogynistic. And so culturally, I think this is where, so in other words, just say, how I remember how Democrats, did not like Trump at all. So you say, well, we have a Trump-like guy in South Korea. And can you imagine, being associated with someone like Trump? And think about it, so I think in that way, we can also kind of,
Yeah, that's another good idea. Subak has his hand up, so make sure you unmute. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. First.
Go ahead.
Okay. I have a question to Dr. Chun. I saw the 여성 평화 걷기, Women Peace March. I like to connect my activity and that activity together. I appreciate you leave the contact number or email, anything for me to contact. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, in fact, in the Korean article, there was they had the phone number and everything. So if I think Sally has my email address. So if you shoot me an email, I'll definitely give that information, and also the chairwoman of this movement, this peace walk. So yeah, definitely, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Sally,
Okay, I think, go
could-
ahead. I think we probably need to close up. So yeah, go ahead, Ayang.
For those of you who really must go, please forgive me, or please sign off if you need to leave. But I need to ask Simone one quick question, maybe long answer, but quick question. In view of the fact that the Yoon's group was able to merge with others and form a larger voting bloc for him, what were the obstacles in the way of Lee's group, kind of gathering other smaller subsets of groups to broaden his base? And I applaud the woman who ran and took like 2 point some%. I think it's a precedent that we should all keep our eyes on. But if she had folded in with Lee, would that have made the big difference?
Yes, Lee would have won.
And were there overtures made and she stood fast and said no, or what happened there?
What happened was, now on the conservative side, there was a last-minute merger between two, the main conservative party, People's Power Party, and also another People's Party, Anchersu. They merged. So 1 week before the election. So that tipped the balance. Anchersu, that he had about 9% of support. So that easily. Stan, you're talking about the Sim Sang-jung, who received 2.4% of vote. Now that is called Justice Party. Now Justice Party is kind of left over from the Korean Democratic Labor Party, KDLP left party. Now that all those progressive party left party was, more radical progressive party were kind of splintered. They were also highly repressed by the conservative president, and one progressive party was pretty much disbanded, forced to disband. And now going back to Sim Sang-jung, yes, she would have, if she had merged with Lee would have definitely, no doubt, because she received 800,000, more than 800,000 votes, and Lee lost by less than, by about 250,000 votes. So she definitely would, if they had merged, Lee would have been a president-elect right now. Why did she not merge with Lee? One, she's very politically ambitious. Secondly, also very important, her formal official explanation is that she, even if she doesn't win, it's important to contest because two-party system is corrupt. So there has to be, so simply being able to keep the third party, however minor it is, alive is important. And but there's another actually, there's a rumor, speculation that she was actually indirectly helping Yoon Suk-yeol, and there's even allegation of financial what do you call deal. So she did not merge with Lee, and now if you look at her response, she's the Justice Party argues that the Democratic Party has not been at all pushed for any sort of merger interest, shown any interest with them, so that they actually blame on the Democratic Party. But that being said, so what is the likelihood of kind of the one that I included in my talk, liberal progressive front? That will be ideal, but the problem is Liberal Party, Democratic Party do not want to has fear of identifying with this sort of minor left party, because then they'll be considered as they are too radical, because they are trying to appeal to the middle centrist middle ground. But so if you have solidarity with this, what they consider fringe minority, minor radical party, it's not going to be good on their part, the image of their party. So that's why they're not doing it. But at this point, I would say that they should. I mean, this is actually I would support. They should have a united front. One more thing I would also point out is that Democratic parties are very, very conservative. Now, again, I'll just emphasize still, because now everybody's so depressed and dejected, again, this is the very creative new sort of movement are led by young women in the 20s. They are called, in Korean, called 개딸. It sounds very weird, but 개혁을 추구하는 딸들. It means that daughters who support reform. We are daughters of reform, progressive reform. So, so they're very different from previous movement, you know, and based on laborers or other peace activists. You know, you go there, their protests, you know, they're all, you know, playing K-pop and they all have costume and very uplifting, positive, you know, the kind of positive attitude you have when you are in the 20s, right? The pretty, so, you know, sophisticated, very bright, you know, very courageous. So I think that's, I think although this may sound very, you know, it's almost like not so significant kind of movement, but I think that it is also, it is adding, it is creating energy at the time when the conservatives seems to have, they said they have, you know, they won. Right? It's their, Korea is their country. So I think that, so to respond to your question, the merger among liberal, progressive, leftist parties have a lot of, there are a lot of obstacles. That's why they haven't been able to do it. Very divided.
What's going on with the young men?
Young men. Young man, Korean, you know, that really, I have not even seen this. I mean, this sounds so alien, but the young men have really became so toward conservative. They're reactionary, a lot of, and also it's led by, actually, I shouldn't misrepresent too much, exaggerate too much. A lot of, there has been this sort of very militant minority, really almost like women hating male group who in the past, even 5 years ago, would have been totally, you know, outcast, you know, were not even taken seriously. They slowly have become right now in the mainstream. They actually, you know, the head of conservative party, Lee Jun-suk, who graduated at Harvard, who was in his 36-year-old guy. You know, if you don't know Korean, consider it as a blessing. Why? Because the kind of thing that Yoon Suk-yeol and also this 36-year-old, this right-wing, you know, very reactionary chair of conservative party, what's coming out from his mouth is just truly appalling. It's you know, saying something like feminism is responsible for lower birth rate in Korea. And the women should go to, you know, if you want equality, you should also go to serve the military, you know, service. Women are getting already advantage in all their, you know, job interviews. They already get the, you know, the advantage because of their women. And the fact that young men can't find jobs is because women are taking all the jobs, etc., etc., etc. So we have right now in the guys 20s and also 30s, the most reactionary, I would say, right-wing kind of movement that's you saw in the data. So it's stark contrast between male and female. But I would say this has also been exploited by this very fringe group. And so I think that's also part of the reason. So it's alarming. And
yeah, I think those guys, to answer your question, Sally, what's going on with those guys? I think they're the breeding grounds for wife beaters and intimate partner abusers. And they're just like,
yeah, you know, also you guys, I said that it's if you don't read Korean, consider it a blessing. It's that you also claimed that he said that actually this was actually reported in CNN and everywhere. And he said that there's no structural discrimination against women. It's all it's individual's fault.
right. Wife beaters, like I said, domestic violence is going to go up even more.
Yeah, and also there's, you know, all the other issues that of course I didn't talk about it, but that the sexual harassment and also the internet. Maybe I wouldn't go that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it can get really bad. And actually the root for that probably comes from the tiny little part of the Confucian philosophy that laid out the hierarchy of who's more superior and who's less superior. Anyway, sorry for going on and on, but Simone, Sally feels very responsible for keeping time, and she is good at it, and I have ruined it. But thank you so much.
Thank you. It was, yeah, we're going to spread this recording around. I hope you're okay with that, because it was fantastic. I hope I'm going to load it up to a YouTube site, and then share it with our group and with the, I think that maybe Echo will help us get it to the larger group, or Alicia. And then Peace Action, I'm going to share it with them. I don't know, up the Women Against War.
Yeah.
Everyone, please.
I don't know whether Echo and Alicia themselves are competent or available to do the translation, because some of those charts are meaningless unless they are in English, you know, because the narrative, the captions. So we'll try to see how we can work those out into English translation, Simone.
Okay.
Yeah,
but I think with your narrative underneath, that was okay, you know, for purposes, but you know, there might be a couple of those charts that will be very useful to us, you know, for trying to, you know, we'll need to get the chart exactly from you and maybe translate it. Maybe, I think we should try. Maybe when we meet next time, we're we do it in the second Monday of the month. I think I put the date somewhere in one of the emails. We'll meet again, and we'll try this approach. I personally am curious to see if we can, you know, work on some of these representatives, because it really is important that South Korea wants this engagement. You know, it's like the U.S. saying we want it doesn't carry as much weight as the Koreans want it. You know, when we're talking with our representatives.
The second Monday of May is the 9th. That's our next meeting, folks. Yeah. And everybody, thanks so much for coming today. And thank you for Sally for getting the tech, all of that ready. That's my weakness. And we'll see you next. Simone, join us sometime just for the fun of it.
Of course, I'd love to.
All right. Well, thank you again.
Everyone works very hard. The labor of love. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. Bye, Hazel. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. See you April 23rd. Bye.
Yes. Yes. I'm going to try to make it, Subok.
Oh, great. We got to bring 10 people.
You are coming 23rd?
I'm trying to. I have to find someone to watch over my husband when I'm gone. But Subok, did you see Wendy's suggestion in the chat box?
What was it?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, she said,
take a photo. Yeah.
Yeah. You know those plastic sleeves? Do you know what she's talking about?
No.
How do you say 봉투? A plastic sleeve. You put a photo maybe of a soldier or, you know, the military drills. Put photos inside the plastic sleeves and then join them with a string so that if you don't have enough people, they can just hold the strings.
I see.
Or ribbon, you know, we get.
And she also suggested pillowcases as something
I see.
you could put through the string
Okay.
Yeah.
and then
That's
put
I,
a,
also
I
the-
prepared a little longer flagpole, 1.2 meter. So, you know, it's like a little effigy, a little fake, and a little large flag, 60 centimeter and a 40, I think a 40 centimeter. So
Flag of where? Flag of both North
Korean
and
flag, the
South, North?
unification flag.
Oh, unification flag.
Yeah, and we attached to a long pole, 1.2 meter. So
also
I
you're
wanna-
bringing some of those.
Those
You're
would
gonna
be,
bring-
I tried to 100.
100, okay.
Right.
I like the idea of the softer thing better. The pole is a little stiff. I like the idea of, you know,
Paper pole,
a paper pole.
paper
Okay.
tube.
Yeah, it's your party, Subot. You're the boss.
It's your party, right?
Thank you so much.
Okay,
I
maybe
think-
we can add you pictures from that to Simone's presentation, you know, with all of the activities.
Oh,
We'll
by
have
the
to
way,
take good pictures.
Dr. Chun, I
Yeah.
think I sent you email about the Professor Han Park address.
Huh.
Probably, I don't know how many email address you have, but I'm
Huh.
thinking now, I might send you invitation to Han Park's address. We are hosting once a month. Professor
Yeah, I think, yes, I did receive, yeah.
Park Han-shik, yeah, right.
Yes.
Well, I may
recall.
have your email address.
Mhm, yeah,
Okay.
that's the email address, yeah.
All right. Okay,
Thank you
good,
so much.
good
Thank
night. Thank you again so much. It was really amazing.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so much.
pleasure. Good evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.